said it in this book here. It's called the 11th Cosmic Power Zone, which is in some places they call it the third eye, what is called the Anja chakra, or the third eye. In some aspects they call it the third eye. Some aspects they call it behind the head, the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata. But anyway, it's very key now, because we're going to bring this Darth home in a few minutes. We're going to bring this Darth home in a few minutes, so you can understand a little more about it. The number 11 also represents the Baphomet. Now the Baphomet is the Sabbatic goat. See, do I bring any pictures of the Baphomet, the Sabbatic goat? You have any pictures of the Baphomet? Let's see what I got. Just want to give you several things which represents 11. Number one, it is the supreme. Number one, 11 is also the supreme.
Lottery number. Crap number.
Number one, yeah, it is the supreme number of the great goddess Nut. It is also the number of well, here's one on my here's a Sabbatic goat on my chest. The Sabbatic goat on my chest. We'll get another thing, but if you can hone in on this. It's in the art of the occult. You know, the blue book. It's in the art of the occult. The Sabbatic goat. It is the goat that also represents Saturn. It is also the goat that also represents Saturn. And Saturn is called Satan, the new look at the old devil. The new look at the old devil. The formula of force is 11. 11 in 1. 1 in 11. This is 418. This is 418, which means abrahadabra. The numerical value of 418. 418. In one word consisted of 11 letters. 11 in 1. 11 in 1. The Crowley's magical system was called the Baphomet, or they represented the Baphomet, which the Baphomet, the 11th name. The Baphomet is 11-fold, and the Baphometic cross symbolizes not only the 11th Sephra, which is Darth, but also 1 beyond 10 provides a system outside. And here it goes again. Here it is. You've seen the famous Sabbatic goat. Yeah, I want to get there. Yeah, there you go. Now, you've seen the famous Sabbatic goat, which is called the goat of Mendes. It has a lot of esoteric value to it, which means the star in the forehead represents the third eye. The fire shooting out the top represents the force of the crown chakra, same one that Jesus has. Isn't it interesting that the word Jesus in Crowley's Kabbalistic book 777, the word Jesus is also a number of 666, just when you study. It also has the staff and the caduceus, the kundalini shooting out of the stomach. It has a white moon and a black moon, also represents the yin and the yang. The yin and the yang. This is a symbol of, an arcane symbol of the Christ. Give you a bit of history on that. Is prior to 2,000 years ago, you had the god Dionysus, and the god Dionysus set up some of your motifs for Jesus. He's the god of wine. He's the god of wine. He was a god that was crucified and a god that was resurrected. He's a god that was that was also, father was Zeus in one aspect, and mother died at birth. A lot of the motifs in Dionysus, later on went to craft Jesus. Because, you know, Paul and all them was Romans and Greeks and all this type of stuff here. And they had the Dionysian mysteries also. Also, Dionysus is called Zagorus, which is also Osiris, or Osar, which Dionysus was cut up into pieces, Osiris is cut up into pieces. So, Osiris in Kemet and Dionysus in Manoah, which was a ancient matriarchal cult of the bull. All of this is nothing but Egyptian, dynastic Egyptian, and pre-dynastic Egyptian that spread out into Greece and Rome. So the motifs of Dionysus, which was a horn deity, a deity of wine, a deity of fighting against repression, a symbolic deity of the woman. The motifs went to Jesus as far as a lot of the things he did, but the iconology went to Satan. And so these symbols later on became degraded into satanic symbols. So here it is again. One of the symbols is 11. Is 11 also, which is also the Baphomet. I want to deal with that particular 11 because it is very key. It is very key. It also represents, here again, the 11th month. The 11th month. So that's very interesting. The aspect of moving right along, we have it is also the number of magic. They talk about the 11, and it's called 1 beyond 10, which is 11. But they also say if you take the 11 and you cross it up, you get the X. It's called the Egyptian X. X marks the spot. But going back, if I can, going back down here on Earth, you have a picture of X. X marks the spot. This is called Malkuth, which is Earth, the fallen daughter, but it's also called the kingdom. This particular spear, X marks the spot. In this particular spear, that X also represents the third eye. And it is interesting that this particular same symbols would end up in the Nation of Islam. You see what I'm saying? Which I'm quite sure all these occult symbols keep coming up in black America haphazardly, and I know that scared the hell out of the doggone white boy when this stuff just appears this particular way. But that X, if you take the two bars and separate them, it comes back to the number 11. The number 11. Also, moving right along, because we have some real good information. Number one, the whole aspect of 9/11 is coming off of the heels of a war between the forces of light and the forces of darkness that is seen in your Dead Sea Scrolls. In your Dead Sea Scrolls that we will talk about when we you all stick with me because we got some real good news on we're gonna really tell you what they're doing every little day on this news. You can just pick this stuff apart. Because it's one thing you got to follow. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. But yet we have to go through some occult significance of what's going on. And this is these are the diagrams. And this is the actual road that the occult realm follows. 11 again is the number of Darth, which is this particular spear, which represents a gateway inside of you in the Kabbalah and a gateway out of the known universe A to the world to come, universe B. Universe B. I'll give you some material that you might want to read to try to understand that in a few minutes. Just bear with me. 11 is the number of magic, of energy tending to change. That's the key. To change. Now, chaos is a disorganized state where change is supreme. Chaos is in effect melanin. the cosmic substance left behind from the gods, permeating in the bodies of the African Americans that are the heirs to the earth that the Europeans are saying. Why are we the heirs to the earth? Is because of melanin. Melanin is more than just a substance in the skin. It is a pre-cosmic substance known by many names: occultum, viril, melacines, melanosis, negrito, acacia, the nigrum, nigrus. That's in Jung's psychology and the nigrum, nigrus in Jung's psychology and alchemy. Psychology and alchemy. 11 is the number of magic tending to change. Chaos is where change is supreme, which is the precise formula of the operation of Doth. Here again, Doth again. Doth is melanin. Doth is this black stage. And also Doth is Darth Vader, which wears all the black. Doth, and the reason for its association with death is a supreme type of change. Is a supreme type of change. Then we have to ask that question: what is death? In Alvin Boyd Kuhn's book called Lost Light, he explains that the Egyptians say, or the ancient Egyptians or the Kamites used to say, that we are what is left behind when a whole bunch of gods die. Or so many words, there was a whole bunch of gods that used to live on the earth, and they died, or fell asleep, or died. And after they died, we humans and this earth and what we live on and all what we go through is what occurs after a whole bunch of gods died. There's a whole question: what about if we were all a part of God's dream? And what about if God woke up? Well, the Egyptians say that there was a whole bunch of people that died. A whole bunch of gods that died. And after they died, the Egyptians appeared, or the humanity appeared, and Africa appeared after these gods died. I thought that's just very fascinating. So, Doth is also death. And melanin is crushed death. Based on the Rig Veda. And based on the mythology and the teachings of Shiva. It is crushed death. It is the substance of the gods after the gods died. In actuality, it is what is left behind of the gods. Since they are gods and they never really die, melanin is God and God is melanin. This is what this stuff is, a Neoplatonic formula. Both man and God exist in both aspects. Whereas God is all potential, man is the perfecting agent of God's potential. What exists seemingly in God unmanifests and unfolds in man, but is done by a Neoplatonic formula. That Neoplatonic formula that Gershom Scholem in his book Kabbalah is talking about, if you understand what he's trying to say, it is talking about alchemy and it is talking about the melanin. Very key. So Doth is also a form of Thoth, or Thoth, and Thoth is the god of magic, alchemy, wisdom, and melanin. And melanin, which is this substance that is not just in our skin, but it is this substance in the central nervous system. Very key. Microscopic organisms that they talk about in the Phantom Menace called chlormidians. Now stick closely with me right now, because they're talking about this thing every day on the news. You gotta track this thing, because they're coming on here and they're telling you every day on the news. Just stick close. I got to set this thing up now. I gotta set it up. We're gonna give you some bibliography. We're gonna give you some bibliography that you can go and you can check out some of this particular terminology. But we have to lay down the esoteric and scholarly work to try to understand and track what the government is actually doing. We are in a great day, and I know exactly what's going on, so just bear with me. So, after the gods died, their substance or their essence was left behind, and that essence was used to make woman and man. So in the mythology of the Titans were destroyed, burnt up. Their blood was used to make man. Titans is pre-creation gods. In the Bible it says, I will raise, Revelation it says, the ones who will be raised up are the ones that were slain before the foundation of the earth. The ones that were slain before the foundation of the earth. This is what is all going on with this whole 11:11. Tie this thing in. In the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian Genesis, get Alexander Hadel's book, Babylonian Genesis. Alexander Hadel's book, Babylonian Genesis. In the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian Genesis, it talks about Tiamat, the great mother. You get the word Ti, a T, which means land, Mat, which is Mayat. Tiamat, land of Maya, or the great mother Tiamat, is defeated by the son Marduk, and her blood is used to make the earth. She has a counterpart called Kingu, and his blood is used to make man. That's where you get the word king from. To be a king, you have to have melanin. Stick with me on this. So we're giving you this particular mythology of this, because you're going to need this in a few minutes. 11 in the Tarot deck, going back to Aleister Crowley Tarot deck. Why this one? Because there were several things that was lost in the Tarot, and when this pre-human intelligence called Awas, which is a form of Heru, or the master of Horus, came back, he put a lot of stuff in here that was lost based on years of translating this stuff from the Kamite thing. But remember, your Tarot deck first shows up in Europe by the Moors, later on picked up by the Gypsies, but shows up in Europe with the Moors. This is the book of Thoth. Here it is again. Thoth, Thoth, Tahuti, Hermes. In the Tarot deck, your first card is called the Fool. It's called the Fool. The Fool is the only card that can be used at the front of the deck and throughout the entire deck. The Fool represents an innocent character. His innocence gives him the most potential for future learning. The most incomplete of us is the most arrogant of us. When a person is innocent or humble, it is open for new situations. It is open to experience new things. That's why they say we do not try to free your mind after it gets to a certain age in the matrix, because the mind has problems letting go. So the Fool comes in, and the Fool is innocent. So therefore, it has the most potential for learning. It has the most potential for learning. You see what I'm saying? An innocent, humble people. You see what I'm saying? Now, The Fool is the first card of Tarot deck, which is also the number 11. And that Tarot card can be seen throughout the whole deck. So the deck, long before it was a divination, it was a deck of initiation and path that you would actually take of the inner workings of your mind, your soul, and your spirit. Your mind, your soul, and your spirit. This all started during the month of July on into the month that they are signaling 11. The two buildings were 11. July represents Jason, which is a famous story, Jason and the Argonauts. Jason also represents the star Sirius. July, August, September, October, November being the 11th month, which Jason represents the rising of Sirius going on into the 11th month, November. Very key. Which is also called Jason's, the Ark of Jason, the Argo, the Ark of Sothis. All of this stuff coincides based on what mythology you're dealing with. But Jason is also, the end of Jason is November, which is the 11th month, which is the 11th month. Now, what happened in July? We must go into a bit of history on what happened. Before I ended, I said that there was a war that was scheduled to start based on prophecy, a war of the sons of darkness and a war of the sons of light. Now, they say that what rides the waves of our world is another world that exists concurrently with our world. A phantom world to our world, but a real world. During this particular time, now there's two worlds going on. Simultaneously, there's a world that exists concurrently with our world. And this is the world that the ruling powers is most interested in. It is the world that they follow. It is the world that, based on its strength and based on its destiny, is the world that will unseat them, and a world that will topple their power. So, two worlds going on, two realities. In March of this year, we were visited by a certain hierarchy that ruled over the known world that we live in, the Matrix. So, to break this down, you have two sets of spiritual forces, spiritual gods, spiritual entities. One is the gods that rest upon the tree. Got a picture of the tree alive. We're going to be using this diagram a lot. One is the gods that rest upon the tree of the Sephiroth, of the known manifested universe A. The other is the God that rests upon the back of the tree, universe B. The gods that's on the front of the tree is called the Sephiroth, or it's called the gods of the world of appearances. They're called the demiurge. They rule the known matrix. In Greek mythology, they would be your Olympian deities. They represent the gods that were over the last cycle of creation. The gateway Darth, the 11th cosmic power zone, represented here on the Tree of Life, which is behind this bar, represents the world, universe B to come, which gives you the gods at the back of the tree. Okay? So, in March of this year, the particular gods of the old eon, mainly broken down into 4 deities. Now let me explain a history of what is going on. Plain and simple, you had a lot of spiritual systems that passed through eons, and you had people would come in and they would worship in these spiritual systems. Unfortunately, the earth is very old, and a lot of those spiritual systems cease to have complete line of ritual permeated within the system. So you have all your Egyptian system, your Hebrew systems, and the majority of the systems that you have had a time when it came where they became defunct, and people were not operating in those systems, keeping that energy alive so that those frequencies and those gods or those energy frequencies could survive and keep their energy up. The systems that only survived, that was ancient systems, now I'm not talking about religious systems, I'm talking about very ancient systems, is your West African systems, such as Yoruba, your Dahomey aspects of Voodoo, your Fawn, and different aspects of West Africa, your Dogon, different aspects of West African religions are the ones that survived. So, as a result, although we can trace these things back in mythology, where you can basically trace the actual structures back to ancient Greece, ancient Kemet, Mesopotamia, all these damn things is basically Northeast Africa. I want to put forth these different systems. The ones that was able to survive was your West Africa. Not even your Egyptian ones survived. They later on became a system that was started back up, but as far as that current, the ones that survived were your ones from West Africa. And in so many ways, we're talking about your Voodoo, your Yoruba, later on your Santeria, your Macumba, your Obia, and different one of these systems, different in these particular systems, as well as one of the most potent systems, which is your Palo Manombe. I just want to just break this down so you can understand some things. These particular systems survived, and as a result, you have hierarchies that set over these systems. The West African Yoruba system, the major hierarchy that sets over these particular systems right now is the Legba, god of the crossroads, Obatala, Shango, and Ogun. Although there are several other entities, these are the chief entities right now that set over the known matrix of the past creation. So this would represent in Christianity the Archangel Michael. Different aspects of Enoch, different aspects of you could cross-reference these particular deities. To make a long story short, the remaining 4 entities of the past creation order of the last cycle of creation, so many billions of years, 13 billion years or whatever, which is no time in the realm of the gods, because there's no such thing as time. The remaining aspects of those particular 4 entities, Legba, Obatala, Shango, and Ogun, are those particular entities who didn't see a break in the systems, so these entities was able to survive. These systems, as well as other systems that were on the planet that were in operation at that time represent your patriarchal systems, the male-dominated systems. Those particular patriarchal systems and the male-dominated systems replaced primal systems of the feminine great mother systems, such as the cult of Tiamat, the cult of Apep. So in the Egyptian creation, Ra comes into creation by overthrowing the great dragon Apep. The great dragon represents the constellation of Draco, the northern point of the cosmos. The great mother, the great Leviathan, the great Areskagal, the great Echidna. These are different names of the divine feminine that was overthrown. Now, these particular realms of the divine feminine that was overthrown ended up, which now our world exists. This world, it comes into being and exists after the shutdown of several other primal worlds that existed prior to it. Those particular primal worlds existed as long as this world has existed. Those primal worlds used to be in operation, and those primal worlds were called the feminine worlds that existed prior to the world of creation as we know, which is a masculine cycle. You can also get this in the book Kabbalistic Universe by Zev Halve Simon. Zev Halve Simon, book Kabbalistic Universe, talks about these primal worlds. So our world exists off of several other primal worlds that preceded it. So those primal worlds was the feminine order. Now, those particular entities of the feminine order exist of male and female entities. But those male and female entities was overthrown, cast down, and became humans to their sons and daughters. So, we just recapping for the people out here to try to understand this. The primal worlds that existed prior to creation was the feminine world that was cast down, turned into the earth, Gaia, and humans. If you get the Greek diagram, you'll find out in the beginning there was the earth, there was Eros, there was Tartarus, and there was Okeanos. The earth represented Gaia. In the beginning there was the Gaia, which now represents earth. Eros, which represents the primal force in us to drive. It's the sexual energy. It is the primal force to drive for creation. It is the fire that existed in the universe. Okeanos, which is water. And Tartarus, which was the apparatus of that primal realm that was flung deep into the bowels of our inner body and also into the earth that you call hell. These are the primal worlds. But those particular primal worlds were the worlds of the masculine order's parents. Those particular parents were cast down and turned into humans. Those feminine entities that did not end up being cast down, because they cast down feminine and male entities and they became humans. The one, so that's the whole thing of Satan bound. Depends on if you get the other part of the story. Those particular ones that weren't cast down, that were humans, that were goddesses of the feminine order, in order for them to survive, they had to take subordinate roles along with these masculine entities and become consorts to these masculine entities. So Oshun, Yeminya, Oya, Olokun, and different female deities who used to exist in the primal worlds, in the feminine order, in order for them not to get cast down with the rest of us, humans, they took subordinate roles and became consorts to the now ruling male deities. Now, the scene has shifted, and those primal worlds, which is that feminine order, is now new again. So that primal world was old, their children were new, the children cast them down, the primal world became dormant, that feminine energy, now those children now are old. And the feminine order of that primal world is now coming back, which exists the male and female, and is now coming back, and now it's time for that last existing order to now eclipse. But the thing happened, those primal orders, those matriarchal deities, don't want to go quietly. They don't want the feminine order, which is male and female, to, because ultimately we are all female in a greater sense. In a greater sense, because even Horus in the mythology has a bisexual nature, is talking about both the duality of male and female, a male and female. Dionysus, they talk about this same aspect in Shiva. The key here is that particular order which exists, the male and female, the order of the last cycle of creation don't want to go quietly. So as a result, because the West African entities are some of the ones that were left behind, because remember your Egyptian entities, which is the same thing, you just cross-reference them, were ruling and stuff. That energy, once those particular systems shut down and no longer and shut down and are no longer open for the people to come in and do the rituals to bring that particular energy, those entities have to go into the existing aspect of the existing power that exists in another system. So many words to get this thing straight, to line this thing up. That feminine order that was once dormant and now is back alive. The masculine order don't want to go quietly, but the masculine order now exists 4 entities: Elegba, Shango, Obatala, and Ogun. Ogun being the warrior of that particular system. That feminine entity, the feminine system of that particular system of the matriarchal order that was overthrown survived in West Africa through what is called the Congo rites, or the Congo, which is called now Palo-Menombe, which is found in America, in the Western Hemisphere, as Palo-Menombe in Puerto Rico and some parts of South America, which is the most powerful now because it exists of 2 aspects of entities. Your Olmec, which is now, they call it Aztec, which is your Olmec entities, and your Congo African entities combined. Because your Congo African entities combined. You have Palo, which is the Congo rites, which is the dark side of your Yoruba, which that dark side was directly held down by Ogun. It's in the book African Ogun. He was the warrior to hold down that dark side. Now, follow me on this. Now so that dark side that we call Palo-Menombe is your feminine order. Now, we're not talking about good and evil here. What we're talking about here is forces battling for supremacy. On the spiritual world, there's no such thing as good and evil. It's just light and dark, yin and yang, and one eclipses the other based on eons, or what you call cycles. So the one that is about to eclipse the other is now the dark side, which is the feminine order, the lunar order. That's why you get the Baphomet goat, or the Sabbatic goat that we had, the picture of the Sabbatic goat. Here you have a picture of the Sabbatic goat that I showed recently. And in this picture you got 2 moons, the dark moon and the light moon. The dark moon represents the feminine. Represents the feminine. But even the moon period, lunar, because it has the phases, represents the feminine energy. Follow me on this. So now, this is the war that's talked about in the Dead Sea Scrolls of light and dark that we have been fighting recently since March of 2001, and especially since May the 21st, when we went directly into the black hole. I just want to set this thing up. This is a prelude to what went on at the World Trade Center. Now, going back. Okay, I'm going to put that here. Okay, cool. Now, going back, whatever happens in this world, whoever sets it up, there's always something that is treading that concurrently in another world. Two different worlds going on. Always understand that. You have Universe A and Universe B. Universe B. Universe B is the underworld. Now, based on spiritual seers, because we must add them into the equation. Although we put the entire synopsis that this thing was conspiratorial in the last tape, the spiritual seers, several ones across the country. I met a brother in South Carolina recently. They say they saw something else. The only thing we got was a newspaper article where they said that they had a newspaper article where they said they had a form of they saw a form of Satan with some horns. You remember they said that? They saw a form of Satan with some horns in the clouds.
In the smoke.
In the smoke.
Right.
In the smoke of the World Trade Center.
Towers.
Yeah. They saw some Satan with some horns in the World Trade Center. In the World Trade Center. So that's very interesting. We do have that particular aspect, which is the only one that made it. But what several people saw was, they said that they saw, and I'm going ahead of myself, but they said they saw the sky open, and they saw this big black hole behind the World Trade Center. And they said they saw some entities step out. I'm just giving you the spiritual part now of what we saw based on what they call scrying, the visual aspects. There's several different ones. And they said they saw a light force hit one building, which represented some white smoke, and a dark force hit another building, which represented some dark smoke. And it was two different smokes, all types of smoke that was going on in this particular aspect. And they said they saw a big black hole behind the building. Well, it's interesting because the tarot card talks about the future, how there's a lightning bolt that strikes those particular towers and make them come crumbling down, that I talked about in the last video, which represents the